Today I'm going to walk you through a small yet important upgrade that I made to my Telecaster, something that actually made a huge difference in how it plays and how it sounds. It's one of those things that you don't really think about until it starts to bug you, and once you fix it, you're going to wonder why it took you so long to get around to doing it. All right, let's talk saddles. Yep, these little guys can make or break your tone and feel, especially on a Telecaster. So here's the deal. The classic 3-barrel brass saddle bridge that you see on Telecasters, that's the traditional Telecaster setup. It's simple, it's stable, and honestly, it sounds just fine most of the time. That vintage twang, a lot of it comes from those saddles. But the design, let's just say it's less than perfect. One of the oldest issues with these bridges has always been intonation. Back in the day, if you wanted proper tuning across all your strings on a Telecaster, you literally had to bend the intonation screw by hand till you got it into the right spot. They're still out there. It's not by accident, and yeah, it worked, sort of. I mean, it's a MacGyver way of getting around the problem. But over the last 10 or 15 years, we've seen all kinds of compensated saddle designs pop up to help with this problem. Most of them work, they're all better than nothing, and honestly, overall, they're built to decent quality standards. But there's been one lingering problem that almost nobody really addressed. That's the string spacing. More specifically, keeping the string spacing exactly where you want it to be side by side. What would often happen is the strings would drift over time as you strum and pick. They would slowly slide over towards the height screws, and you'd get chattering, you'd get buzzing, just an overall unbalanced feel to the guitar. It threw off the whole vibe that the guitar had, even when intonation happened to be dead on. And that's why I decided to upgrade my custom-built Telecaster to the Music City Bridge Groove Master saddles to fix that annoying issue once and for all. So how did the folks over at Music City resolve the issue? Well, it's quite simple really, and ingenious at the same time. They added a set of precision micro grooves across the top of each saddle, so your strings stay locked in place, exactly where you want them to be. No more slipping, no more drifting, and no interference from the height screws. Why didn't anyone think of this sooner? Well, actually, Leo Fender did. Back in the 1960s, 61, Fender used a threaded steel rod for their saddles. But because the threads were at an angle like what you would see on a screw, it caused all kinds of other issues, weird overtones, including those terrible sitar sounds when you didn't want to hear them. The Groove Master saddles fixed that problem too. Their grooves are straight, they're not angled, so your notes stay clean and focused all the time. You don't have any strange overtones. And they also feature a carefully milled intonation step that keeps tuning locked in even with the traditional 3-saddle layout. So this is something that a lot of people do like and are looking for when they're playing a Telecaster. And setup is really simple. We'll jump over to my messy workbench in a second and I'll install them with you so you can see step by step what's involved if you're interested in making this modification to your guitar as well. Now the Music City saddles are also reversible by design. That means you can flip them to reverse the intonation compensation pattern. So for example, if you're running a plain 3rd string, you can swap sides between the B and the G string pairing for better tuning alignment. So this little feature is very versatile and it's fantastic that they thought about this. Okay, enough yapping. Let's head over to my messy workbench and get to the installation. These saddles are just regular barrel brass saddles here. I think this guitar definitely deserves an upgrade. Spill out all the parts here. Hopefully we don't lose anything so you can see exactly what's in the package. So it comes with everything you need. You have the springs, you have the Allen key, you have the screws, you have the Allen screws here that are slowly running off camera because my messy workbench is tilted a little bit. They don't skimp out on quality of materials. They don't skimp out on the quality of the accuracy of all this stuff. Everything will fit in perfectly. You're not going to have any weird things where a screw feels awkward or stiff going in. Everything is milled to perfection and very high quality. You're going to be happy with the quality of this stuff. It shouldn't take very long. This is a pretty easy upgrade as long as you don't lose any parts. And within a couple of minutes, you'll have a better playing guitar, I think. You might want to measure the heights of your strings or the heights of your saddles if you want to get them dialed in the way they were beforehand. It's always a good idea to use one of these rulers and just measure the height where you have the strings set up. Just note that very quickly so that you can dial in the heights back to where they were. All right, so we're going to remove the strings here. I'll upgrade the strings once they're all loosened up and removed off of the guitar, because these strings are kind of starting to feel rubbery anyways, so it's a good time for me to remove these. I'm gonna just loosen them up here. So I just loosen the strings. I cut them off just because at this stage it's easier to manage to pop them through. I don't like to muss around with them too much. This way they come out nice and easy. I can pull them out the back without too much muss or fuss. So we're just going to take these off. You don't need anything special to do that, just a screwdriver. So here we're just going to remove these guys here. It takes a little bit of time if I do it this way. You can see the quality of what I had there. It's just a regular piece of brass. Now if I show you the other ones, we put them side by side, they're pretty much the same thickness. They're not thinner. Pretty similar. I mean, they're almost dead on in terms of size. You're not gonna have to worry about adjusting, you know, or shaving anything down because they're already made to fit this size. So, you know, if I put them side by side, they're pretty much identical. I'm gonna go ahead and take out the rest of these and save your parts, guys. Save your parts, because eventually you'll probably build another guitar and these will come in handy, I guarantee you. So I'm going to be installing the high E string first. So you want to make sure that you have them the right way around. And according to the diagram here, the low step is on the upper side, the higher step is on the lower side, just like that. And that's how we're going to install this. As I mentioned, I used the shortest of the Allen keys here because the higher E string, the B string require less height. So you want to make sure you use the shortest so that they don't stick out and you don't scratch your hand or anything on these. You want it to be as comfortable as possible. So the only other thing to do really at this stage is to insert your longer screw here. The spring has to go like so on the inside. So we'll just move that out of the way. And as I said, make sure you don't accidentally put these the wrong way around. It's easy to mix them up if you're not paying attention. And it does make a difference when you're trying to intonate your guitar. So later on, if they're not the right way around, you're going to have issues. So then all you got to do, screw that in. And I'm not going to adjust it at this stage. I'm just going to put everything in. And then since I have taken the measurements already, I'll readjust all of the saddles individually to the right height and the right distance from the back of the saddle so that we can get them into the ballpark. And then I'll do the final setup, adjustment, intonation once the strings are on. So let's go ahead, put in the other ones. If you guys have any questions along the way while you're watching this video, please feel free to just put your comments, your questions down at the bottom. I'll be more than happy to answer you guys. Put this through. Put in the little spring and screw this guy down. A lot of more expensive guitars don't even give you the greatest hardware. So it's nice to be able to use these kind of upgrades to give your guitar just that little 10% more, you know. So I'm gonna put in a set of Ernie Ball 42 to 9 gauge strings on this guitar. Now for those of you that like watching someone install strings, you can stay tuned for that. Otherwise, you can just fast forward this part. So typically when you have locking tuners, what people tend to do is this. They tend to just push it through, tighten this down, cut off the strings. I like to extend it a little bit more and just give it a once, just a little bit more meat around the string, and then I'll go ahead and lock it. So at this stage, to make things quicker, I like to use my winder tool here. I can just lock down the string internally here, but I don't over tighten it. We have them roughly tuned in, and I roughed in the saddle height. What I like to do is go with the radius of the fretboard. So this fretboard is a 10-inch radius. So I take my 10-inch radius gauge and I just make sure that we have about a 10-inch radius happening more or less at the bridge saddles here. And that usually will get me in the ballpark. Now the next thing to do is to adjust the intonation. Nothing has been adjusted here, as you can see. It's pretty much the way I had it before. So now I'm gonna get my strobe tuner. I like to do this with a strobe tuner, and I like to do this in the playing position, so I won't necessarily show you all of that. You just have to tighten or loosen these screws depending on what you want to do. If you pull it backwards and make the string longer, the string will go down in terms of tuning. If you shorten the string, it'll go up. So depending on what you're reading on your tuner, if it's sharp or flat, you have to adjust this forward or back. So let me try and dial that in quickly and see if I can get into the ballpark, and I'll show you what it looks like. Just keep in mind, like right now it's almost straight, and that'll change once you have the intonation dialed in. So it's done. The installation didn't take that long. You can see now that, you know, the steps are adjusted according to the way they're supposed to be. And I can't wait to actually try the guitar now to see whether or not it plays any different. I don't expect much of a difference in terms of tone. I mean, the saddles were brass before, they're brass now. We'll see if it actually makes a difference with the tone. But I'm just curious to see what the feel will be like now. Of course, now that the strings are in the grooves here, they shouldn't budge. You know, that's one of the things that sometimes happens with guitars that have round saddles. They just slide around a little bit, and the spacing on the strings tend to change over time just due to hard picking and tuning up and all that kind of stuff. Once you have these in the proper place, the way you like them, they shouldn't move. The grooves will keep everything locked in. And I also like the fact that nothing sticks out of the top here. There's nothing that's going to rub against my palm. The screws are short enough so that they actually are deeper inside the saddles, so that's really good. And also the length of the screw here is not too long. Sometimes you end up with screws that are just a little bit too long and they actually stick out a little bit too much over the string height. These ones don't. So I'm pretty happy in terms of quality of the product so far. Now I just have to play the heck out of this guitar and break them in a little bit, you know, just to make sure the strings are stretched up so that they stay in tune, and then see how it feels. I'm really pleased with these saddles. The hardware is top notch. They're using proper 632 threaded screws, just like the originals, but now in stainless steel. So no rust issues ever. That is something that a lot of people are gonna love. Honestly, they thought of everything with this design. It's like they took all the classic Telecaster vibe and just ironed out all the wrinkles. And when it comes to tone, it's really about what you don't hear. No intonation issues, no strange overtones, no sitar-like artifacts. I can't say for sure, but to me, I feel like the attack feels a little quicker and more immediate with these saddles. I don't know if it's the placebo effect. I'm gonna give it a little bit more time, but you do get a clean, focused tone, spot-on tuning, no string drift, no unwanted buzz, with solid, reliable hardware that's built to last. So if you're dealing with any of these issues on your Telecaster, or you just want a solid upgrade that keeps things vintage but fixes these irritating flaws, I definitely recommend checking these out. Let me know in the comments if you've tried them already or if you're using something similar, and if you're into mods like this one, tone tips, or gear reviews, be sure to hit that button to subscribe to the channel because more videos are on the way real soon. Thanks for hanging out. I'll catch you on the next one.